them to share the wealth in that regard.
Boston was pushed down. 7 to shoot. Boston methodical on her take. After they had fallen behind by 6 in the quarter, then Sydney Coulson, as Aaliyah Boston has an extended conversation with the officials, and then is gonna get over to Angel Gray. Angel?
They were seconds away from pulling off one of the most unlikely comebacks of the season, the kind of rally that makes highlight reels and changes narratives, but in one blink, it was gone. The Indiana Fever had clawed back from a 17-point hole without Caitlin Clark, without Sydney Coulson, without Ari McDonald. Their entire point guard rotation wiped out in a matter of days. Kelsey Mitchell was running the show out of position. Aaliyah Boston was battling through bruises and bad calls. Sophie Cunningham was hitting momentum-swinging shots, and the crowd could feel the upset brewing. But when it came down to that final possession, a questionable decision, no timeout, and a controversial whistle turned celebration into heartbreak. Now, the frustration is boiling over, the locker room is buzzing, and what Aaliyah Boston said after the game is already making waves. Before we get to that, let's break down exactly how it all unraveled and why this loss has the entire WNBA talking. From the opening tip, it didn't take long to see just how much this Fever roster had been gutted. A few days earlier, disaster had struck in Phoenix. Sydney Coulson tore her left ACL. Ari McDonald fractured a bone in her foot, and just like that, Indiana lost 2 of their floor generals in a single night. Add in Caitlin Clark, still sidelined with a groin injury since July, and suddenly, the Fever's entire point guard rotation was gone. No ball handlers, no one to break full court pressure, no one to run the sets the way this team was built to play. That meant Kelsey Mitchell, their purest scorer, was now forced to play out of position, initiating every possession while still carrying the scoring load. It was a massive adjustment, not just on paper, but in the physical demands of the game. Every inbound pass in her hands, every trap coming her way, every defender keyed on stopping her before she could even cross half court. The ripple effects were immediate. Turnovers started piling up, clean entry passes turned into contested scrambles, and each possession felt like a battle just to get a decent look. This wasn't the Fever's game plan, it was survival basketball from the opening minutes. Against Dallas, those cracks became impossible to ignore. 17 turnovers, nearly a quarter of the Wings' total points coming directly off Indiana's mistakes, and every single one felt like a gut punch. Dallas didn't even have to work for a big chunk of their offense. The Fever were handing them opportunities before they could set up a defense. Each possession for Indiana became a grind. Every pass a gamble, the margin for error shrinking to nothing. To patch the bleeding, the front office made an emergency move, signing veteran Odyssey Sims to a hardship contract. But with barely a day to learn the playbook and zero chemistry built with her new teammates, she was thrown into the fire. In her debut, she logged 13 minutes, went scoreless, and spent most of her time just trying to figure out where teammates wanted the ball. It wasn't a knock on her, it was the reality of joining a team mid-season in crisis mode, with no time to breathe. The Fever weren't just missing their point guards, they were missing the glue that holds an offense together, and every trip down the floor was proof of just how costly that absence can be. With no other choice, the Fever pushed Kelsey Mitchell fully into the lead guard role, and there was no easing her into it. Every inbound started with her, every set depended on her, and the defensive heat came from the moment she touched the ball. Normally, Mitchell is lethal off the catch, cutting, curling, and attacking in space, but now she had to fight through traps just to get the offense started, then somehow still create her own shot. The physical toll was obvious, yet she refused to back down. Against Dallas, she erupted for 24 points on 7 of 15 shooting, drilling 4 threes and grabbing 6 rebounds, all while carrying the entire offense on her back. Every bucket she hit was followed by another exhausting trip through full court pressure, but Mitchell kept finding ways to break it, orchestrate plays, and keep Indiana within striking distance. She wasn't just scoring, she was setting the tone, burying deep shots when the game looked out of reach, waving her teammates into position, and threading pinpoint passes in the pick and roll. This wasn't her natural role, but it was the role the Fever needed, and she embraced it like a star, determined not to let her team go down without a fight. But this wasn't a one-woman show. Other Fever players rose up and delivered in the exact moments the game could have slipped away. Sophie Cunningham was pure fire, dropping 14 points on 5 of 1-0 shooting, hitting 2 massive threes that swung the momentum, and diving for every loose ball like the season depended on it. Her edge was contagious, fueling the comeback and firing up the crowd, even if it meant jawing with the refs and later issuing a public apology for one heated exchange. Chloe Bibby made her minutes count in a big way, 11 points in just 12 minutes, going a perfect 3 for 3 from deep, including a dagger triple that forced Dallas into a timeout right as Indiana's run was building. Natasha Howard was a wall in the paint, throwing down a 12-point, 12-rebound, double-double with 3 blocks, shutting down second-chance points and making Dallas work for every inside look. Aaliyah Boston fought through brutal contact all night, still managing 14 points and giving the Fever vital interior buckets when the perimeter shots weren't falling. And even Lexi Hull, who didn't score, made life miserable for Paige Bueckers defensively, chasing her over screens and clogging passing lanes. Every role player understood the assignment, and together, they outscored Dallas 25-4, the fourth, to give themselves a real shot at the win. And that's exactly why the ending stung so badly. They had fought all the way back, set the stage for a statement win, and then watched it slip away in the final seconds. With 11.7 seconds left, down by 1, Indiana grabbed a defensive rebound and had a timeout in their pocket. But instead of stopping the clock to draw up a play, they pushed in transition. Kelsey Mitchell ended up taking a heavily contested jumper that missed. Dallas snagged the rebound, and only then did Stephanie White call timeout with just 1.7 seconds remaining, far too late to run anything meaningful. After the game, White admitted she should have pulled the trigger at the 3-second mark, a rare public admission of a tactical mistake in a moment that could shape the season's trajectory. For fans, it was agonizing not just because of the shot, but because they'd seen this team claw out of an impossible situation, only to watch a winnable game decided by hesitation and lost clock management. In a season where every game matters for playoff position, this wasn't just another loss. It was the kind that lingers. But the clock management wasn't the only thing igniting frustration. The officiating turned into just as big a storyline, and the Fever were fuming. In the fourth quarter, Aaliyah Boston fought for position under the rim, only to have her arm clamped by a Dallas defender. Instead of calling a hold or a foul on Dallas, the refs whistled Boston. The call stood after review, costing Indiana their challenge and a timeout, and even stunned broadcaster Rebecca Lobo, who flat out said she expected it to be overturned. Then came the Sophie Cunningham sequence, a flagrant foul call for a closeout on Paige Bueckers that felt eerily similar to a play earlier, where Bueckers herself committed the same type of landing space violation and only got upgraded after review. To make matters worse, Kelsey Mitchell took almost identical contact later with no whistle at all. The inconsistency was impossible to ignore. Post-game, Coach Stephanie White didn't mince words, calling Kelsey held or chucked on every freaking possession and labeling Boston the worst officiated post player in the league. It was blunt, it was public, and it put the league's officiating standards directly under the spotlight. You could see the frustration boiling over in real time. Sophie Cunningham hit her breaking point after being shoved by Bueckers, blurting out a raw "God damn it" before walking away in outburst she later apologized for. But one that showed exactly how much the game's physicality and officiating had worn on her. Even Caitlin Clark, still sidelined with her groin injury, joined in the silent protest, clapping sharply in the direction of referee Amy Bonner after the final buzzer. During one tense exchange between Stephanie White and an official, Aaliyah Boston stepped in, visibly upset, until Clark reached out to calm her coach down. And then came Boston's post-game statement, just 3 words: "We need better focus." Short, blunt, and loaded with double meaning. Part of it was self-reflection, but part of it was clearly aimed at the chaos around them, the calls, the missed opportunities, the moments that yanked them out of rhythm. It was the kind of comment that hangs in the air long after the cameras stop rolling. And all of it came with the stakes cranked all the way up. Dallas isn't a top-tier team this season. They're sitting near the bottom, more focused on draft positioning than playoff pushes, which made this loss even harder to swallow. Indiana needed this win to solidify their spot in the standings, but instead, they slid to 6, tightening an already brutal postseason race with only a handful of games left. The pressure is now suffocating. Every possession in these final matchups will matter, every decision will be magnified, and every whistle will carry extra weight. Some fans are calling for Stephanie White's job, pointing to late-game execution and missed timeouts. But the reality is she's kept a roster shredded by injuries in the playoff picture far longer than most thought possible. The Fever have already proven they can fight their way into position despite losing their entire point guard rotation, but nights like this are the difference between chasing a playoff dream and watching it slip away. Now, the question isn't just whether they can bounce back, it's whether they can do it before the clock runs out on their season. So here's where it stands. Indiana had the heart, the hustle, and the comeback of the season in their grasp. But hesitation, controversial calls, and missed execution turned a statement win into a gut-wrenching loss. The injuries have tested their depth, the officiating has tested their patience, and now the standings are testing their resolve. Caitlin Clark is still rehabbing and hasn't returned to practice yet, but the team expects her back within weeks, and that return could be the jolt they need. Until then, every game is a fight to prove they can survive without their stars and still punch their ticket to the postseason. But after what we just saw, fans are split. Was this simply a bad night in a brutal season, or a warning sign that bigger changes are needed before it's too late? Drop your take in the comments, make sure you're subscribed, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next update, because the Fever story is far from over and the ending might just shock everyone.